most creative agencies, they're like niching down is like the word that makes them go, oh yeah, we haven't done that yet. Whereas you have gone ultra hyper niche.
I think once you get hold of a niche and you really understand what it is to be an expert in that field, you become one of few. I think if you're in amongst quite a saturated environment, if you don't harness some element of niche to it, you just become a number. It just stands us out from the crowd a little bit in terms of how saturated the agency market is. But if you are looking to market a property with interactive digital tools in this day and age, then I'd like to think that we're industry leaders in doing that.
Hi, welcome to Content Mavericks. My name's Jack Longman from Longman Media Co.
And I'm Jason Skazil from Too Fresh.
And today we're joined by Harrison Smith of Tidywork Studio.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Hello, mate.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Harrison. Welcome to the show. Thanks for
Jack.
coming along. So I guess we'll start today off, or this conversation off, by asking, who are you and what do you do?
Hi Joe. Thanks for having us today. So my name's Harrison Smith. I'm the founder and managing director of Tidywork Studio, which I set up 10 years ago, kind of now actually. So we are a creative studio / agency / provider of creative solutions for the property marketing world. We're kind of set up to aid the property marketeers effectively, to change the way that properties are sold via digital content.
Cool. So there's something that I saw on your website, property marketing solutions built to sell. So what does that mean?
I think it harnesses the kind of shift really in mentality for us from being just content creators from back in kind of before social media really took its hold. I mean, content was obviously still important, but we were driving more towards just posting, kind of producing content just for content's sake, but not actually transitioning it into a methodology for sales. So for me, like we built the studio and it's become it's kind of had an organic growth period, but it's about actually utilising or assisting or consulting on how this imagery and this content can be utilised for selling. And so from a solutions point of view as well, as a service provider for us, like providing services is one thing, but actually consulting on how you can utilise that for sales purposes is kind of our kind of USP in a way. That's kind of what I'd say that is.
Cool.
How did you get into it? I mean, what's your backstory? How do you congratulations, big achievement running an agency for 10 years. But what is the story before that?
So firstly, thanks for the congrats. Appreciate that. I think for me, like my background was in film production and cinematography specifically. Studied at the Metropolitan Film School. Was very much into it and wanted to do that for a career in some capacity. So once I took that degree away, I then was a camera operator for a startup company who I was lucky enough to be flown over to the Caribbean, and we was filming a lot of super yachts and stuff, and I was only 19 at the time, 19, 20, and I got a lot of experience and was exposed to some quite extravagant kind of scenarios, which at the time I didn't realise how lucky I was, but I was there and I was doing it, and I was grafting, which is the most important thing, but I was understanding the fundamentals of composition of imagery, I guess, which I'd learnt from university obviously, but from taking it from an educational standpoint actually into a corporate setting was quite a big transition. But I was doing that for a couple of years, which was good fun. Left there, went to another corporate video company and was a camera operator and editor there, and really kind of started to hone the craft of 3D. So at that time I was doing a bit into 2D motion graphics, but I was also learning the craft of 3D, which is kind of where a lot of what we do now at Tidywork Studio, the kind of the fundamentals of that were learnt in that setting, because I was able to put some of that knowledge into the early years of Tidywork where I was kind of doing everything. I decided at one point during the second stint of employment that I could kind of utilise a lot of these skills that I'd learnt and take them into the property industry, where I saw a gap in the market to really change the way that we do things with selling property.
Why property?
Family businesses in property. So my dad's run a business for many years in property sales and marketing, and so throughout the years, there's always been that network and that safety environment of that industry. And for me, I knew that I could take my skill set and really become a pioneer in that element. But I think, in answer to your question, it was why not use what's there, and create something for myself in that network that already existed.
I suppose everyone always needs a place to live, right?
Yeah.
And then someone's always going to need to sell the places to live. So.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so that's what stands out to me with that is it's like most creative agencies, they're like niching down is like the word that makes them go, oh yeah, we haven't done that yet. Whereas you have gone ultra hyper niche, is in like you're not just taking photos, making visuals for any company. It's this specific like area of this specific industry. So what informed that decision? Like what was your thought process behind choosing that particular type of customer?
Yeah, good question. I think I wanted to kind of build a bit of a safety net in that niche, because I think once you get hold of a niche and you really understand what it is to be an expert in that field, you become one of few. I think if you're in amongst quite a saturated environment, if you don't harness some element of niche to it, you just become a number. So I did desperately want to become an expert in an area for that reason, and it makes us, it just stands us out from the crowd a little bit in terms of how saturated the agency market is. But if you are looking to market a property with interactive digital tools in this day and age, then I'd like to think that we're industry leaders in doing that. I also would say, to kind of completely contradict what I just said, is that there was no real targeted plan to sit there. It was just like, I use the word organic a lot of the time. Like tidy work has always been an organic approach. It started with me as a photographer and camera operator around London, just doing bits with a camera kit bag on my back, to where we are now. And I always would say to people, like, it's never intended for it to be like it is. And I'm not saying we're there yet, and I'm certainly not sitting here saying that I've completed it, mate. It's like it's very much a work in progress, and it has always been that way. I just I somehow find a way to continue. I guess that's the word, continue.
Okay, so 10 years, that's amazing. Obviously, it's no small feat. What has been like some standout moments over the 10 years as a business owner? Like, the one thing that I'm hearing is, what you just said about like, started out yourself with a camera bag on your back, you went to film school, everything like that. You creative at heart, right? So, whereas now you're running a business with how many staff?
We've got 12 in-house, and then we work with a batch of subcontractors across the different areas if we need to. But effectively, under my direct control, 12 control. I push buttons on 12. Yeah, right. But no. So 12 in-house.
Awesome. So, I mean, just me personally, I always find, so I'm a creative at heart running a business, and that they're two different things, right? That kind of, sometimes it's like yin and yang, and sometimes it clashes together. So was it like that for you, or did it come very naturally to you, or?
Massive clash. If I'm being honest, it's hard. If for example I was a business-led person and I got loads of investment and I was very much, let's just get all the money, and it's a completely different methodology, it probably would have enabled us to scale faster. I'd say like the creative element of my brain probably holds us back a hell of a lot because I'm always questioning the right decision, and creatives, you get sort of writer's block, and I effectively get writer's block across everything. So is that CGI right enough? Are we going to release that like that? Is it going to be, is this the right way? Because when you're running a business, or even if you're creating a film or anything, there's so many avenues you can go. So I feel like being a creative at heart is a hindrance to my business person. However, I fully understand I'm in a position of both. I need to be both, and I need to be the best at both. But I also understand, like, as I come away from the creative element and become more of a business person, I need to understand that there are people out there, and there are my staff there to run the creative side and do that really well, and actually do it better than I could probably ever do it. And we spoke a bit earlier, Jack, about separating away from that very standard business process of being able to let go of the things that you had your hands on, what you used to have your hands on. That's very much a key and important thing. But yeah, I think I try to put both business brain and creative brain working in hybrid with one another, and try and do it in the best way possible, but also understand that you have to shift and prioritize one brain over the other.
Yeah, totally can relate with that. Obviously, with our video agency as well, very similar dilemmas. Your company has served and worked with some of the biggest property brands in the UK. And obviously you have the trust of them because of the work that you guys deliver is so premium. How do you balance delivering a premium service as well as making an effective profit?
Yeah, I think it's by trusting. I think it's trusting the team. It's trusting the team to do the best job they can in the time frame that we give them. Ultimately, we have to price jobs and we price projects, and we tell the team that this is the time that you have to do it. And it's about getting the best out of the team within that time frame. And I don't necessarily demand or need the best from my team. And I know that sounds very contradicting. Like, a lot of the time you want the best out of everybody, but actually when you're trying to run an effective business that makes money and is profitable, you don't always need the best. You need what works. You need what works for the Tidy Work brand. You need incredibly good imagery. But when you're dealing with specialists, like all the CGI artists that are at the office, and everybody that I like to think of everybody that I employ as specialists in whatever they do, but I trust that they can give me what we need to make this business profitable. So I think it's just having a keen eye on the numbers, having a keen eye on the metrics, which again we touched on earlier. But it is hard because ultimately we need to charge a fair amount to keep the salaries going, to keep we just got a new office, to keep that running, and the rent and everything else. We ultimately are not a charity. We can't just run at cost. We have to make money. So it's about being strict with the data and the numbers, but also trusting the team to do what they can and do the best they can in the time frame.
So we had a conversation the other day in the lead up to this about the office, and obviously it being the 10-year anniversary of Tidy Work. How many offices have you had?
We're in our 5th office now, over 10 years.
It's average 2.
Yeah, I get bored very quick, as you can probably tell. Like, I like to change environments up. I'm like, which is probably at my hindrance, but yeah, I'm like a 2-year guy on everything, apart from my wife.
I bet she's glad.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I like switching it up. But yeah, we are where we are now, and it's a fantastic space. We've got an interactive demo room where we can showcase our technology, our 3D technology, and the applications that we do, that we produce. So it's been a massive change for us, like for the good.
And I guess it's good, right? Because when you were moving into that new office, I guess you could do all this CGI stuff for that office.
Yeah. Touchy subject. I was about, yeah. And actually, we didn't do anything for our new office. We did cobbler's shoes, they call it, where we didn't do anything for ourselves. And I actually shared with you tonight. I drew up a rough floor plan of how I wanted it to be, and I just slapped a picture of David Brent where I wanted my office. And as long as I got my office with David Brent in it, it was job done.
Is he your self-image? Do you see yourself in David?
100%. Yeah, he's my guy.
He's your guy.
Yeah.
In terms of, let's talk about you as a creative. Is there any aspect? So we've talked about the positive aspect of niching down to a certain sector, but is there any part of you where you feel creatively, I want to try doing content in another area? Is there any aspect that you want to explore still?
Yeah, I think there's a fire in my belly for elements of fiction and short film and the stuff that the stuff that I studied, the reason why I went to film school was to do that. There's not two ways about it. I didn't go to film school so I could set up a business. So I think at one time in my life, I'd like to do a Ricky Gervais, talking of David Brent, and actually get to a point where I just give something a go and see what happens for a laugh. Basically, I do. God, that really sounds like David Brent. Just for having a laugh. No, I really do just fancy doing like a sitcom or something. But I was also I was into my gritty dramas back in the day. Like the British social realism was a big part of my film degree. Like a Shane Meadows type vibe, and I sod it. So at some point, I do want to do some fiction stuff. If your question was relating to business, then I would say I would like to go a bit more international with what we do. I think I'd be silly to close the door on international business because once we've got our central CGI hub now, and we can go global with it. The photography, video side, and virtual tours, the Matterports, they need personnel and resource in the location. But for the CGI side, we can have a hub and go anywhere. So I'd say my plan over the next couple of years, just to explore. You look at Dubai, Saudi Arabia, those kind of places where the property market is booming, and they're not too adverse to using the technology that we produce. So that's probably where I'd look to.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
On the Shane Meadows stuff, what's your favourite Shane Meadows film?
I'm going to say This Is England. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a film. But the one that really blew me away was Dead Man's Shoes.
Dead Man's Shoes, yeah. I watched it the other day, actually. Yeah, that was incredible.
The twist is unreal.
Yeah, it's superb. I liked all of his stuff. I think This Is England is it has obviously its political guidance and whatever, but more so for me, just the aesthetics. It was about family, and the scene at the end where we've got the flag and the water and everything else. It very much was you're a product of your upbringing. You're effectively a product of your upbringing, but you can also understand and appreciate what's home. You know what I mean? Forget the flags, forget the politics. Ultimately, we're just animals on a planet, and at some point, you have to realise that this is your home. And I think that for me, that was like a massive part of my reason for going to film school, was just to try and create content like that. So, one day I'll give that a go.
So one of our cinematographers on the Divided Island, she's worked with Shane Meadows. And she said his process is insane.
I bet, yeah.
So, he casts non-actors most of the time. So there's a mixture between experienced actors and non-actors. But there's hardly any script. It's like 80% improv with a little bit of, here's the narrative of what's going to happen in this scene. You guys play it out. And that's a bit of a nightmare to film, or can be a bit of a nightmare to film. But that's probably why he gets such amazing, authentic, naturalistic, realistic performances from his staff.
Yeah, it's an interesting take on direction. I think Woody Allen does the same, very much improvisation, and you get the best out of it, a bit like what we're doing here.
Exactly.
And on that note, so I'm just hearing the word like Matterport. I've got to be honest, in my mind, that means, what the hell does that mean? So, and but where my question is going is, okay, so you started off doing photography, videography. When was the moment that you realised, oh, hang on, we should look into this and start providing this? And how did you go about kind of developing that as an offering and offering it to a client?
Yeah, so it was, it wasn't actually an industry demand thing at that time, even though I knew it was. It comes to light, obviously it was a demand, but at the time I had 3D experience, so I knew how to build elements of motion graphics, call it, like just geometric stuff like cubes and circles and stuff that were forming corporate video content in 3D. But I kind of got to the understanding that actually I could have a stab at creating photorealistic imagery using the skill sets that I kind of had, or the tools that were there. There's a big difference between kind of animation, 3D. There's obviously so many manifestations of animation, but to get it photorealistic was something just more like a challenge to me. I kind of felt like just giving it a go. I think I did my first few, just not on any real plans or anything. I just kind of did some demo projects just to give it a go. Yeah, so I think it was more like a selfish personal thing to kind of go, let me see if I can give this a go, and I did, and I was actually quite good at it, believe it or not, and I was able to then sell that as a service. I'm very much like a researchy kind of guy. Well, I'll find out if I can do something. There's not many things that stop me like from learning how to do stuff. I'm very much like a Jack Longman of all trades. Jack of all trades. But yeah, like, you know, I try and dabble in everything, and I think that's an important thing for me as a business owner and the creative and everything else. The more people can see me doing multiple things, it puts some trust in them that I've got a vested interest in everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, so yeah.
So not the Richard Branson figure it out afterwards. You like to figure it out before.
Yeah, well, no, actually, let me contradict myself again, because there's been plenty of times where I have sold stuff, not known how to do it, and then worked out how to do it for sure. I have done that. I feel like, I guess it just depends on the risk. I suppose you've got to mitigate the risk a little bit. If you feel like you have a client that you've known for many years, you can probably take on that risk more so by finding out after. My client's going to kill me and probably disinstruct me from a lot of things by saying that. But there's also an element of, have a quick look at what you need to do to achieve it.
If you've got the best interests at heart, it's like, you know, it's part of being creative, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
Taking risks and
and actually, the more riskier jobs or the more risk you obtain, the more profitable they become. And there's a big shift at the moment with George, my head of operations, where we're looking at risk mitigation kind of strategy and stuff. But I don't want to take away too much risk, right? Mm-hmm. Because if I do, it becomes a very boring work environment, mm-hmm. right? And actually, you become less of an entrepreneur when you take away risk. So I think there's if anybody's watching this as a creative wanting to set up a business, the first thing I'd say is don't be scared to take risks. That is such a standard business annoying obvious thing to say, but that is probably my biggest bit of advice. Take a leap, take a risk. If it's financial risk, if it's personal risk, take it. Because if you don't, you're quite likely just to sit under the radar, and you might do all right. But if you're that way inclined that you want to progress and you want to be entrepreneurial, go with your gut kind of vibe. That's what I've always done, and it seemed to work. Yeah.
I guess that spark never goes out.
No.
You know, yeah. So if it's still there when later on in life, you'll be like, oh fuck.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you have to take risks within boundaries, right? You don't want to give up your whole. You don't want to take your whole capital and risk it, but it's about taking risks within reason, isn't it? Yes.
That's right. Is there any aspect of that that's changed for you as you've got older, your family's developing, etc.?
It probably should have changed. Probably should have changed. But no, I still take the same risks, if not more now, because I know I need to progress. Like, I'm not sitting here, like I said earlier, I'm not sitting here multi-millionaire, done it all, happy days. We're very much still in the growth phase. So if I stop taking risks now, I actually feel like that's a risk in its own.
Agreed.
I now have to find more and more opportunities, take more risks to continue to grow. I mean, I could just end it all and be a bus driver or something and have, although that's a pretty risky job. You could have a crash. But no, generally speaking, you just got to do it, haven't you? Yeah.
So with the content that you produce, where does that go? Where do your clients put that? Because I'm wondering, I see so much potential for the content that your agency produces to be used on social, obviously, because that's just where my mind goes. Mm-hmm. But where does it typically end up, or where could it end up?
So it used to be the bane of my life, seeing or not seeing, more to the point, the content that we had produced. So we would do vast amounts of services on projects. We'd deliver all the content, get paid for it happy days. And just because I got a vested interest in everything that we do, I'd always check in and go, oh, let's have a little look at where that content went. Nothing. It might have lived on a Rightmove listing for a week, and then it's gone, or it's sat on a printed brochure that ended up in a bin. So it used to be a real problem where that content didn't actually reach the eyeballs that it should have done. And whether that's incompetence from the marketeers or whatever, but it used to be like it was just there to kind of serve a short-term purpose, whereas now I feel like the shift, and the reason for your types of businesses to exist, Jack, is that content needs to go out and can do quite effectively and quite fast to out to everybody. So, in answer to your question, it used to go in sort of printed form, real short life cycle. Whereas my big shift over the last couple of years is taking all that content, packaging it up, and putting it into interactive systems that are laced with real deep technology stacks that are impressive. So you get the fancy 3D spin site model, all singing, all dancing stuff, but packed in there is all the content, so all your CGI galleries, all your virtual tours, all your animation, all that stuff that we work hard to do is on there, both in its main form and also in its light version, the web app. And the web app is something that you can take on your mobile, your tablets, and you can absorb all that collateral from home. So yeah, I think it has taken a massive shift for the benefit of everyone, really, the benefit of the marketeers, but also the benefit of the customers, because the customers want to see, they want to visualize themselves in these spaces, they want to use our technology to experience what it's like to be on the balcony at 6 o'clock with the golden sun, and you having a drink and whatever. We can give them that aspirational thing. So yeah, it now more so goes out on socials, but also lands in our interactive more so than it used to.
Cool.
Awesome. Really good. Any advice you'd give for a creative agency owner that's looking to scale their business to the sort of size that you've already managed to do?
I would say get your finances right early. The mistakes I've made over the past are just things like just simple things like your cloud accounting, like making sure you're aware of your tax bills, like all that kind of stuff that I took for granted back in the day because all this money was coming in. It will soon bite you on the kneecap. So you have to be very careful with the finances because it's no easy feat dealing with sizable amounts of money. You have to be very strict with that. And that's where my creative versus business brain becomes a problem. Creatively want to do everything, business mind can't do everything. So you have to be, I would say, in answer to your question, get your finances right early and take risks within reason.
Last question. What's your favourite film?
My favourite film is... I can go with like a basic answer, or I can go a bit niche with it.
Go niche. Go deep.
Okay, there's a film called The Martins with Lee Evans. Do you know it? No one knows it. I think it got printed on one DVD and I own it. But
Can you share it with us?
But it was a great film. Kathy Burke's in it. So it's Lee Evans, Kathy Burke, and effectively it's a happy-go-lucky family, no money, but he sees an advert in a newspaper for like a £1 holiday or something, and he applies for it. And he thinks he's won it, but he gets booted off and doesn't get it in the end. So he goes to the office of the newspaper with a gun and threatens the guy to have the holiday, and he gives him the holiday. And it's an incredibly heartwarming but hilarious film, which you should definitely watch.
I've got one more because I've just remembered something. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be in the emergency services. I was interested in the police very early on, later become interested in the fire service, and I did make it to the fire service, so we've kind of skipped a gap in my career. Right. I was a firefighter for 4 years, from when I was 22 to 26, and so when I first set up Tidywork Studio, I was also a frontline firefighter for Essex County Fire Rescue.
No way.
Yeah, I did both at the same time. So
wow.
So my first 4 years was kind of stunted growth because I was happy with the two things. But I did that because it was something I just always wanted to do. I wanted to challenge myself.
You did complete it, mate.
Yeah, but no, I had to come out of that because my son was about to be born and tidy work was growing, and so I did actually transition into the studio and come away from the fire service, but I miss it dearly. I made some good friends, learnt a lot, shit myself a lot, but learnt a hell of a lot. And actually, it's a good topic of discussion, which we can elaborate on maybe in a future date or something. But I do feel like there's a lot I learnt from those time critical environments that you can take into business.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you would have it's just marketing, just putting a slogan into it, but you're putting out fires in your business and be like, oh, hang on, I've got to go put out an actual fire.
An actual fire, yeah, for sure. And we've got plenty of stories. Me and George should have a good chat about how the two interfered with one another. Because there was times where I desperately needed to be in a meeting, and I was out in a field putting out a fire that some farmer had started. So, but that happened on a weekly basis. It was all good fun.
Sounds like a good documentary, mate.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been a pleasure, Harrison.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for having us. Appreciate it. Yeah,
Awesome.
cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Nice one.
Nice one.